Hey people of the VC, it's Andy Cloudy Mulder with a vinyl collection update. This one is long overdue. I had these albums lined up to show you a couple of weeks ago, then I ended up doing that Halloween album song ranking video, and then I managed to pull a muscle in my back and I couldn't sit in this chair in my music room for the best part of a week. So everything got pushed back a little bit, but here we are. Let's get on with it. In the background, what we are listening to is Acid Love Bites. This is a Japanese hard rock metal band, kind of don't really know how to describe them. They're kind of like a groove metal, but not a groove thrash metal. Yeah, interesting. I forgot this is a VCLT from Greg the Egg some time ago. It's originally from 1994. Decent listen. I'd be very surprised if this gets a copyright strike. Right, first off I want to thank a good friend of mine, Sander, who he picked up a bunch of Iron Maiden 12-inch and 7-inch singles recently, and he offered me any of the ones I didn't have, and I gratefully grabbed a couple off him, and he sent them to me, and they arrived a few weeks ago now, but it's taken me that long to do an update video, so I'm just getting around to thanking him. I started to give him a thank on camera. He doesn't make videos or anything, but he has played a big part in me making videos, because and in fact collecting vinyl. He's big vinyl nut, and I was talking with him one time, and it was before my records were on the loft still. I had my original 80s metal collection, and for a brief second I told him I'd get them down, have a look and see if there's anything he was interested in, and it was flicking through those records that made me realised I couldn't possibly part with them, and then that got me down the road to buying a record player, record shelves, more records everywhere, and it was all thanks to him and that conversation. So what did I get off him? So one of the ones I grabbed off him was this German pressing of Iron Maiden's Women in Uniform with Drifter and Phantom of the Opera live. Now I do have a UK pressing of this, so I grabbed that here. So this is one that's got the classic Margaret Thatcher cover on it, Seeking Revenge after the Sanctuary cover. But this one has Women in Uniform Invasion, studio version of Invasion, and Phantom of the Opera live. This one's got Drifter live on it, so delighted to grab that. And the cover here is just a blown up picture of the first album, and there we have the lighter. I like the label on this as well, this sort of simple EMI. Washed out, there we go. Beige label kind of stuff. One of my favourite songs. One of my favourite Iron Maiden songs, and they didn't even write it. The other one I grabbed from him was Be Quick or Be Dead, the single from Fear of the Dark, I think it was. This was prior to their 1992 Castle Donington appearance, and it has a nodding Donkey Blues on the B-side. So thanks for that, Sander. Appreciate that. That was really cool of you. So let's get on to the albums. I think I've got about 8 to show you today. I mentioned in my last update that I picked up a bundle of Chastain related albums. This one is A Voice of the Cult, and it's the one that he's got Leather Leone singing on. It's their 4th album. This is from 1988. It's a Roadrunner pressing, so from Holland. The best thing about Chastain, so Chastain is he likes a bit of a shredder. He's a real shredder, but this is controlled shredding. I mentioned this before, like CGSS. This is David, what is it with shredders? David T. Chastain, Yngwie J. Malmsteen. They're all really keen to let you know what their middle name initial is, but not actually what their middle name is. But The Voice of the Cult is an excellent album. When he's got a full band with songs and lyrics, it constrains the guitar wankery to an acceptable level, so it's not over the top. Leather Leone's raspy vocals fit the music really well. She's just got a great voice. It's one of those that, unless you knew who she was, you may not even think that it's a woman singing at all. Excellent voice. I do like her vocal style when it comes to metal. Music itself, maybe it's just the rhythm guitars here, but there's parts of this that remind me of Refuge Denied by Sanctuary, especially the start of the song Share Yourself with Me, which is also a great song. Excellent album, not as good as CJSS for me, but glad to have this. There'll be more Chastain coming up in future releases as I continue to consume that bundle. When I buy a bundle of records by the same artists, I tend to eke them out, so I'm not. Otherwise, they all become a blur. And I don't know what songs are on which album. Next up, I've got the debut album by Portrait. Now, I've owned this album for a really long time, and it's been sat in the inbox, and I've revisited it on multiple occasions, but you know what, I think I'm finally done with it. It's their debut album. Portrait are a Swedish band. This came out in 2008 on High Roller Records, so it gets the usual High Roller treatment of the catalogue. Nice inlay card with lyrics and this was on clear vinyl. I hate clear vinyl. Clear vinyl is my worst. I can't even call it coloured vinyl because it's just got no colour in it. But to me, crystal clear vinyl just looks like really cheap. Not that it affects the sound or the music that's on it. And the problem with this as well for me is it's the vocals. I cannot stand the vocals. So this Philip Svenefelt, which I'm probably butchering. Sorry mate, but they are terrible. Kind of really screechy, and it just completely puts me off this album. I get in stages where I think I've not listened to Portrait for a while. I put on one of the other albums, and I think, let me try this one again. Let me try this. I put this on, and then I don't want to listen to Portrait again for ages. So I'm probably going to give up on this album now and just stick to the other three albums that they've released with a different vocalist. And the change in vocals really did the trick for them. Absolutely. I mean, you check out the other three albums, and you will not go wrong with Portrait, but I would probably give this one a miss. They could have been, I mean, they're kind of stable mates with a Ram, and they probably could have been as big as Ram are, but they probably had too many changes of personnel as well. What's up to the music? So only Anders Persson on drums and Christian Nindel on guitar. I think they're probably the two founding members, and they're the only two originals still from them. But as I say, do check out Portrait if you've not heard of them and you like bands like Ram. But I'd give this one a miss. Next up, another band that I got a bundle of and have been working my way through update by update. And I think this is the last one, and it is a Grand Magus and Iron Will. And for me, this is where they really found their sound. Now, I think this is their fourth album, so I'm only missing the third album now, and it may well be the third album where they found their sound. I've not heard that one yet, but the first two albums were very much more stoner rock, and this one it's still got those stoner influences, but the more sort of epic heavy metal is coming through on this one. There's some killer songs on here. Like the Oar Strikes the Water, Fear is the Key, probably my favourite one here. Iron Will, the cover song, title track, absolutely fantastic. In fact, every song, I want to say every song on here, is absolutely superb. It's upbeat, it's infectious, It's epic heavy metal at its best, and I can see this certainly becoming my favourite Grand Magus album if I keep playing it as often and as much as I have done. Vocals on here, absolutely sublime. So what do we have in here? We have a lyric sheet, and these are on Rise Above Records. They're reissues. Now, I got most of this batch cheap because although they're all new, and these were actually new and in the shrink, the seller did say they have been bashed, so obviously he's got a job lot or a rejection lot and he was selling them off, so I knew full well that it was going to come creased. That didn't bother me. Of course, because it was sealed, they said the vinyl was mint. I think this one's actually got a chip in the yeah, it's got a it's actually a purple vinyl, but it looks blue in this light I've got here. But it has come with a chip coming out of here, so it even knocked 25% off, which is the standard rate, which I was kind of happy with. It's right on the edge, doesn't affect the playback. We have that is so blue. This is, I was going to say it's the same colour purple as my shirt, but my shirt looks blue as well. But yes, Grand Magus, Iron Will, a monster of an album, well worth checking out. 2008, 2014 reissue on Rise Above. Now the next band is from Scotland, and if I was to say to you, it was a Scottish one-man metal project. I've mentioned a couple of those in previous and different bands. Well, this is a different one again. This is a band, a one-man band called Oath. And what I have here is a mini LP, Legion, and his first full-length album, or maybe I think it might be his second full-length album. But these are the only two that were on available on vinyl that I grabbed. Let's take one at a time. So this is Steve Waddell, or Waddell, if I've pronounced that correctly. He's also in a band called Tantrum, and that's how another Scottish band, and that's how I got to hear that he had his own solo project, which I was keen to check out. The music itself is very different from Tantrum. Tantrum is more sort of 80s heavy metal worship, whereas Oath is much more sort of melodic. This is a good EP, but it's not as good as what was to come with Computer Warrior. A Dream of Solitude, the first track, that's the pick of the bunch for me. It's really, really good. Lots and lots of reverb on here, really. When I first heard this one, I thought, okay, he's doing everything on here. Guitars, bass, probably keyboards as well. Drums, everything is Steve is doing on this album. And I presume that the vocals were perhaps the thing he least enjoyed doing. There's something about them that on this release that just doesn't seem on par with the rest of the music. So don't get me wrong, they're certainly listenable. Nothing like Portrait at all, that debut album I showed earlier. But it sounds much better when we get to Computer Warrior. So maybe it's just one of those things that gets better over time, or better production, or what have you. Maybe a little too heavy on the reverb, as I said, but it's still an excellent release. It's on Underground Power Records, and this came out in 2018. And there's the lyrics. 4-track EP, black vinyl. Yeah. Now this was just under the name of Oath. Presumably there's another Oath somewhere, because Computer Warrior came out as Oath SC. I presume that's for Scotland. Great 80s throwback cover. This is on Church Recordings, the label of Trevor William Church of Haunt. It has a Haunt feel to this one. If you are a fan of Haunt, then I think you will like Computer Warrior. I'm going to tell you always hold things over here, and then you can't read the title. So yeah, if you like horns, you will like Oath SC, I promise you here. But the horn influences don't just stop at the label, as Trevor William Church himself does drums and backing vocals, but everything else, guitars, vocals and bass, and all the writing is done by Steve Waddell. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce his name. It's 8 tracks, 30 minutes long. It's really catchy, and I guarantee, because it's only 30 minutes long, when it finishes you'll pick it up and put it right back on again and listen to it all the way through. Best songs on for me here: Insomnia, Computer Warrior, Stay Strong. Stay Strong is a fantastic closer. It's really upbeat and catches you, and just a brilliant song. Mean Streets has a real 80s quality to it. It's a cross between sort of 80s metal and the rockier sound of 80s pop, like a souped up Duran Duran, which is probably an awful way to describe them. But have a listen to that song, Mean Streets. It's on Bandcamp, so you can listen to everything for free before you buy the album, and you get an insert with lyrics. And this one, I'll show you the vinyl for this one because it is on a beautiful sort of purple and blue pinwheel vinyl. So we have Oath SC, Legion, and Computer Warrior. Computer Warrior was, I think it was released in 2020, but it only came out on vinyl this year, so I grabbed that as soon as I could. Next up, Manila Road, my first studio album. This is The Blessed Curse from 2015 on ZYX Records, European record. For Manila Road fans out there, probably thinking this is a strange place to start with the studio albums, but it was cheap on EMP, so I grabbed it. I'm glad I did. It's a decent album. 17th studio album, and it's officially their first double album, although when you get into it, they split it up into The Blessed Curse as disc 1 and After the Muse as disc 2. To me, it's really one album and a bonus disc. Album 1 you'd play when you wanted to hear it, and then the LP2 is a lot of it's kind of background music. There are 2 tracks on here. One of them is Live Rehearsal, which is 10:42 in length. One of them is a 2014 studio recording. It says it's 15 minutes, so it's just kind of All Hallows Eve. So it's kind of demos and other songs that clearly didn't make the album. There's a really good write-up in here that's entertaining to read through, and this is Mark the Shark Shelton's notes on the album and what he was thinking and how this fits into the whole Manila Road history. So it's a really good read. His solos on here, absolutely superb. Unfortunately, we lost Mark a few years ago, and I'm only really starting to get into Manila Road right now, certainly from a studio album perspective. Songs to check out: The Blessed Curse, the opening and the title track is a really good song, but my favourite is probably Tunes of Clay. It's the longest song on the album. It's an epic piece of music. It's one of those things that promises to build up to a really big crescendo, but it never does. But then you're not left disappointed, even though it didn't as a result. It's just such a great song. It's not fast heavy metal. It's sort of mellow and epic in equal measures. But I need to get more Manila Road. I need to try and get some of the earlier stuff in my collection. There's a lot of reissues out, certainly on High Roller. So hopefully you'll see more of those in future updates. Are we doing for time? Right, the next one, I can cover this one fairly quickly because I know nothing about this band. Two things that grabbed me into this one. One, obviously the music, but two, the cover. When I saw this, it instantly went into kind of my top 5 covers of all time. That's a beast of a cover, and it is, so the album is by a French band called Offo FM, sorry, Offo AM, or Ovo, or I don't know how to pronounce it at all. Plenty of me not knowing how to pronounce things in this video. But this is Offo FM presents The Beast Within, a journey in the life of Octoman. I think it might be a concept album. It's instrumental, it's stoner. I wouldn't normally go out and buy instrumental albums, but I heard this and it was just really catchy, and I wanted to hear more. And this is the sort of thing I can stick on in background music when I'm working, and I'm not distracted by it at all, but it's also a really, really good listen. I couldn't tell you which track to check out because I listened to the whole thing and it all kind of melds into one being instrumental. But what makes me think it's a concept album is the fact that it's split into 3 acts across the two sides of the record. They're a 3-piece. It's on Slow Death Records as well. Another thing I thought was quite cool was that's a record label. I like them enough to have gone and just ordered their second album on Bandcamp. God knows when it'll come because it's got to come from France and everything that's going on with the crazy customs now in the UK. Custom label, white on black and black on white. As I say, not the biggest instrumental fan, but this is a really good listen, and that cover, honestly, that cover, amazing stuff. Final one today. For all you SMFs out there, Twisted Sister, live at the Marquee, 1983. Live double album of Twisted Sister at their rawest. They've just got their Atlantic record deal at this point, and they're over in the UK, and they're getting ready to write their produce their new album. It comes with a superb write-up in the middle by Malcolm Dome, UK rock journalist. Fantastic read, as I say. Gives you a little bit of history about why this gig was taking place, and also, incidentally, last night I watched the rockumentary film We Are Twisted Sister on Amazon, and that is a superb film. If you've not seen it, I would thoroughly recommend watching it, even if you're not a Twisted Sister fan. I thought it would just be covering their career, but it's just over 2 hours long, and it covers their career, early career, up to when they got the record deal with Atlantic, and they must have been one of the hardest working bands around. Their whole image and look, I think, put record companies off, and it wasn't until their promoters sent out a load of their self-published singles all over the place. It was picked up by Sounds magazine in the UK, and it made their top 10, and one of their journalists had put it as his top pick of the week, and they really took off in the UK, and they toured over here and got their first deal and released Under the Blade, and but in the US they were still considered a bit of a club band. They started off being a covers band as well. I did not know Twisted Sister started off being a covers band, so that was really interesting to watch as well. But this album, if you never had the pleasure of going to see heavy metal bands in the 1980s, and you want to know what it was like to see and hear an 80s metal gig, get this album. That's it. It's a double album, and this is the way I wish all live albums were. It's on red vinyl. Shame it's not on pink for Twisted Sister, but you know, there we go. But yeah, so this is how I think all live albums should be. It's got the full set in there, and it's got all the audience banter, all the banter between the bands themselves, and also between Dee and the audience. There's a couple of the tracks on here that just say a band rap, 3 minutes 22 seconds. There's another one, 4 minutes 36. Band introductions, 5:13. So there's a good 11-12 minutes on here where there's no music and it's just Dee Snider talking to the crowd and the band, and such a showman, and it doesn't take away from the album at all. You do not go away from this thinking, I wish they put 3 more songs on instead. I hate it when they put drum solos and guitar solos from the shows, because everyone used to do that in the 80s. I don't think Twisted Sister did, but I went to see Testament a few years ago, and they still did everybody did a solo, and it was like, oh, for God's sake, just play some more songs. But this really works start to finish, and this is not one you would necessarily play. I wouldn't play it with my kids around, because that level of profanity, the swearing in here is off the charts, and it is just what you wanted to hear as a teenage kid. It's the level of language that would excite any teenage boy, to the levels that if their parents knew or heard that, they would never let them go to a show again. But just kids swearing their heads off in response to Dee Snider's request. It's a joy to behold. Absolutely love it. Just took me back to so many gigs I went to where all I can think was if my mum knew what went on in these gigs, she would never let me go. But superb album. If you come across this and you're a fan of really early raw Twisted Sister in their element, where they've got the crowd in the palm of their hand, do yourself a favour, get Live at the Marquee, 1983 by Twisted Sister. You will not be disappointed. Right, there you go. That's my well overdue update. I'll probably have another one in August just to try and catch up and get the old inbox under control. Thanks very much for watching as always, and as usual, let me know in the comments what you think of this stack and these bands, and let's talk some metal. Talk to you soon. Bye.